The silver ships fell from the sky like tears of metal, their surfaces catching the morning sun as they drifted down toward Earth. Captain Lee Minho pressed his face against the cold window of Seoul Station, his heart beating fast as he watched the impossible sight unfold before him. "I can't believe this is really happening," whispered Dr. Park, Suna beside him. Her warm breath made fog on the glass as the biggest alien ship landed softly on the platform they had built in the Han River area. The ships were beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. They moved like water flowing through air, bending and turning in ways that made no sense. Everything Minho had learned about flying and physics seemed wrong when he watched these vessels dance through the sky. Within just a few hours, the aliens had somehow learned to talk to humans. They called themselves the Vorthok, and they spoke through strange, see-through beings that looked like walking glass. These speakers had voices like wind chimes, soft and musical. The leader of these glass beings called itself Prime Speaker. When it addressed the world's leaders on television, every person on Earth stopped what they were doing to listen. "We come with gifts," Prime Speaker said, its voice somehow warm despite sounding like it came from very far away. "Your people have great potential. We want to help you reach it." Colonel Kim Gi-won stood in the back of the meeting room, watching the alien with careful eyes. Something felt wrong about all this. The Vorthok seemed to understand humans too well, like they had been studying them for a long time. Their words were too perfect, their smiles too practiced. But when he tried to voice his concerns, nobody wanted to listen. The whole world was celebrating. People danced in the streets of every city. Children held up signs welcoming their new alien friends. News reporters could barely contain their excitement as they talked about humanity's bright future among the stars. The gifts the Vorthok offered were beyond anything humans had dreamed of. They brought clean energy that could power entire cities without pollution. They shared medical robots so small you couldn't see them, tiny machines that could cure any disease and heal any wound. People who had been sick for years suddenly became healthy. Those who had lost arms or legs grew new ones. But the most amazing gift was their terraforming technology. The Vorthok showed humans how to heal the Earth itself. Dead oceans began to bloom with life again. Poisoned forests turned green and healthy. The air became cleaner than it had been in centuries. Dr. Choi Hyun, Earth's top scientist, worked day and night with the alien technology. "They want to learn about us too," he told the world leaders. "They're fascinated by human culture, our art, our history. They want to study our biology, to understand how we're different from other species they've met." The Vorthok seemed especially interested in human nature. They asked for examples of human creativity, recordings of music and poetry. They wanted to study how humans behaved under stress, how they fought, how they survived difficult times. They requested samples of human DNA and detailed maps of human psychology. "They're building a vast library," Dr. Choi explained. "They want to preserve the essence of every species they meet. We should feel honored that they consider human culture worth saving." In exchange for their gifts, the Vorthok asked for seemingly small things. They wanted to build research stations in space around Earth. They needed biological samples from different human populations. They requested access to historical records, especially stories about wars and conflicts, and how humans overcame challenges. Captain Lee Minho found himself promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's first ship built with alien technology. The vessel was a marvel that could travel between stars in days rather than centuries. Dr. Park, Suna established schools where humans and aliens could learn from each other. Colonel Kim Ji-won watched his military budget shrink as the need for defense seemed to disappear in this new age of peace. Years passed like a beautiful dream. Earth became a paradise. Disease was almost extinct. Energy was unlimited and clean. The planet healed from centuries of damage in just a few short years. Humanity looked to the stars with hope. knowing they would soon join a great community of peaceful species. The Vorthok continued their careful work, always polite, always helpful. Their research stations grew larger and more numerous in Earth's orbit. They collected samples and data with the dedication of librarians, organizing the world's greatest collection. On the 5th anniversary of First Contact, Prime Speaker addressed humanity once more. "Your species continues to amaze us," it said, its glassy form shimmering with what looked like joy. "The friendship between our peoples grows stronger every day. Soon, very soon, we hope to invite humanity to join the greater galactic community." Fireworks lit up the sky over every city on Earth that night. People celebrated 5 years of peace, prosperity, and progress. Children who had grown up knowing only this golden age laughed and played in streets cleaner than their grandparents could have imagined, high above in the orbital stations. The Vorthok transmitted their final reports to coordinates deep in unknown space. The message was simple and efficient, cataloging complete, species fully assessed, all behavioral patterns recorded, harvesting protocols confirmed, awaiting fleet arrival. The celebration continued far into the night, humanity's joy echoing across a world that had become everything they had ever hoped for. None of them knew that their golden age was about to end. Dr. Yoon Daeho sat alone in his laboratory long after everyone else had gone home. The Seoul Xenological Institute was quiet, except for the soft hum of computers and the distant sound of traffic outside. For 3 years, he had felt proud of his work helping the Vorthok learn about human culture. He believed he was doing something important, something that would make humanity famous across the galaxy. But tonight, something felt wrong. Daeho stared at his computer screen, looking at the list of things the Vorthok had asked for recently. They wanted soil samples from old battlefields where terrible wars had been fought. They asked for blood and tissue from soldiers who had been in combat. They wanted detailed studies of how humans behaved when they were scared, angry, or desperate. Why? Do peaceful researchers need to know how humans act in war? He whispered to himself, scrolling through page after page of strange requests. His friend Dr. Han Nari was working late too, sitting at her desk across the room. She looked up when she heard him talking to himself. "Are you still worried about those requests?" she asked, pushing her glasses up her nose. "Maybe they just want to understand everything about us. Scientists like to be complete, you know." But Daeho couldn't shake his feeling that something was terribly wrong. He used his security card to access files that most people weren't allowed to see. What he found made his blood turn cold. The Vorthok had detailed records of 17 other worlds. Each file looked exactly like the work they were doing on Earth now. There were cultural studies, biological samples, psychological profiles, and detailed maps of each species and their home planets. "Nari, come look at this," he called out, his voice shaking slightly. She walked over and leaned over his shoulder to read the screen. Her face went pale as she saw the names. The Kalathi people from a planet called Kepler 4 to B, the Threnody from Wolf 1061c, the Nexari from Proxima Centauri B, and 14 others. "I've never heard the Vorthok mention meeting any other species," Nari said quietly. "They always act like humans are the first aliens they've found." Daeho spent the next several days carefully researching these other worlds when nobody was watching. He used the Vorthok's own database, accessing information they had shared freely with Earth's scientists. What he discovered made him feel sick to his stomach. Every single one of those 17 planets was now completely dead. The worlds still existed, spinning around their suns as they always had, but there was no life on them anymore. No plants, no animals, no cities, no people. They were just empty rocks floating in space, stripped clean of everything that had once made them home to living beings. "This can't be right," Nari whispered when he showed her what he had found. Maybe there was a plague, or a war, or some natural disaster. But Deho had found more disturbing information. The Vorthok files showed that each species had been catalogued for exactly 5 years before their worlds became empty. Each one had been offered the same gifts: clean energy, medical miracles, environmental restoration. Each one had celebrated their new alien friends just as humanity was doing now. And then, after exactly 5 years, every living thing on their worlds had simply vanished. "We need to tell someone," Nari said. But when they tried to contact Earth's military leaders, they discovered that all communications were monitored by Vorthok translation systems. Any message they sent would be read by the aliens before it reached human authorities. Deho remembered an old code he had learned in military school years ago. He sent a simple message to his former roommate, Captain Ojiho, who was stationed on the moon. The message looked innocent, but contained a hidden meaning. The library burns its books after reading them. 3 days later, Captain O arrived at the institute, claiming he was there for a routine inspection. Deep in the building's basement, in a room shielded from electronic surveillance, Deho showed his friend the terrible truth. "They're not preserving human culture," Deho explained, his hands shaking as he pointed to the evidence on his portable computer. "They're studying us like scientists study insects before they kill them. Every species they've contacted has been completely destroyed." Captain O studied the data with growing horror. His face became hard and cold as he realized what the information meant. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Based on the pattern, maybe 6 months, Deho replied. "The cataloging phase always lasts 5 years, and then," he gestured helplessly at the images of dead worlds. "We can't warn the government," Captain O said grimly. "Too many officials now have Vorthok advisors helping them make decisions. We need to find people we can trust completely and start building a secret resistance." Over the following weeks, they carefully chose people to join their hidden group. General Song Mina, who had always questioned the aliens' motives; Dr. Baek Jun, a physicist who had been secretly studying captured Vorthok technology; Professor Lee Myuna, a historian who specialized in how civilizations survive disasters. Their first secret meeting took place in an abandoned subway tunnel beneath Seoul, where old electromagnetic equipment would hide their voices from alien listeners. "Ladies and gentlemen," Deho began, looking at the small group of Earth's potential saviors. "Humanity has 6 months to prepare for total extinction, or to prove that we're not as easy to destroy as 17 other species were." The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. The old coal mine had been dark and empty for 30 years, its tunnels forgotten like a bad memory. Dr. Yoon Deho climbed down the rusty ladder into the cold darkness, his breath making white clouds in the freezing air. Emergency lights threw strange shadows on the rocky walls, making everything look like a scene from a nightmare. "Welcome to our new home," said General Song Mina, her voice bouncing off the walls of the huge underground space. "This is Sanctuary Alpha, one of 47 hiding places we've built in the past 4 months." The cave was alive with people working frantically. Engineers hurried back and forth, installing stolen alien technology next to human-made machines. Dr. Baek Jun stood near a group of workers who were building power systems that mixed Vorthok energy devices with Earth's fusion reactors. The result looked rough and ugly, but it worked perfectly, and the aliens couldn't detect it. "How many people have we hidden so far?" Deho asked, watching his entire families walk through tunnels that led even deeper into the mountain. 12 million people, replied Captain Ojiho, looking at his tablet computer. "We've spread them across underground shelters, bases on the ocean floor, and installations in the frozen Arctic. Officially, all these people died in accidents or natural disasters." The secret resistance had become like a hidden government, working completely out of sight from Earth's real leaders, who were now controlled by the Vorthok. They used old military systems, abandoned buildings, and humanity's greatest skill. the ability to make something from nothing, to create a network that the organized, methodical aliens could never find. Professor Lim Yuna walked over from a communication station, carrying important news. We've made contact with Admiral Lee Minho. He believes us, but can't help us openly. However, he's been secretly upgrading our spaceships with mixed human and alien technology. What about the Vorthok schedule? Asked General Song, her face grim with worry. Dr. Han Nari looked up from her computer station where she had been studying alien signals. 2 months, maybe less. Their harvest fleet has already entered our solar system. Our long-distance sensors show at least 300 ships coming toward Earth. During the months of preparation, the Resistance had learned many important things about their enemy. The Vorthok were incredibly advanced, with technology far beyond anything humans had ever imagined. But they had one major weakness. They were completely predictable. The aliens relied on perfect calculations and detailed studies of how other species behaved. They expected every species they cataloged to act in exactly the same way as all the others before them. This was how they had successfully destroyed 17 other worlds. That's our advantage, explained Dr. Baekjun to a group of military commanders in the underground meeting room. They've never met a species that deliberately acts crazy and unpredictable. Their computers can't understand chaos. Captain Kong Subine, a former Special Forces soldier, smiled grimly. So we give them all the chaos they can handle. The Resistance had developed fighting tactics that made no sense, according to normal military thinking. Instead of defending important positions, they planned to abandon them immediately and attack from directions the aliens would never expect. Rather than protecting valuable resources, they would use them as bait for traps. Every human response would completely violate the careful psychological profiles the Vorthok had created. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, Commander Park Jisoo supervised the construction of underwater cities built in the deepest ocean trenches. The Vorthok assume that land-based species stay on land, she reported through encrypted communications. They're not even scanning the deep ocean areas. Meanwhile, in Antarctica, Colonel Yu Minwoo established bases hidden beneath the ice sheets. The thermal masking is perfect down here. We're completely invisible to their sensors. And they never bothered to study Earth's polar regions during their cataloging phase. Dr. Shin Yoon-ji, working in a converted subway system beneath Tokyo, made the most important discovery of all. I've found a weakness in their communication network. The Vorthok use quantum entanglement for instant communication across space, but it's vulnerable to specific electromagnetic attacks. Can we disrupt their coordination? Asked General Song through the secure communication link. Better than that, Dr. Shin replied excitedly. We can feed them false information. We can make them think our small scattered groups are actually large armies. We can make them believe our fake attacks are real ones, and our real retreats are actually advances. As the massive alien harvest fleet approached Earth, humanity's hidden cities prepared for the most desperate gamble in their species' entire history. 12 million people had vanished from all official records, presumed dead by the Vorthok monitoring systems. They had become ghosts, armed with stolen alien weapons, and driven by the knowledge that 17 other intelligent species had failed to survive this exact same scenario. Dr. Yoon Dae-ho stood in the command center of Sanctuary Alpha, watching status reports flood in from resistance cells all around the world. Children who should have been playing in schoolyards were instead learning how to operate plasma weapons. Grandparents who should have been tending gardens were building underground farms that could feed humanity for decades, if necessary. The Vorthok cataloged us as a peaceful, predictable species, he said to General Song Mina. They studied our art, our culture, our philosophy, but they never understood humanity's most important trait. What's that? She asked. We're the top predators of a world that's been trying to kill us for millions of years. And when predators get cornered, they don't just fight back. they become hunters. The Vorthok harvest fleet arrived on a Tuesday morning like death falling from the sky. Their enormous ships blocked out the sun over Earth's biggest cities, casting dark shadows that stretched for miles. Admiral Lee Min-ho stood on the bridge of his warship, the Edie's Inchin, watching as alien vessels 3 kilometers long positioned themselves above Seoul, New York, and London at exactly the same time. "All ships, this is command," he spoke into his radio, sending the message to his secretly prepared fleet. "Execute Protocol Chaos on my signal." The first part of the harvest went exactly as the Vorthok had planned it would. According to their detailed studies, Earth's people would panic and run away from the cities in predictable patterns, using the main roads and transportation systems where the aliens could easily catch them. Earth's military would try to defend important government buildings using normal fighting tactics. Instead, the cities erupted into complete madness that made no sense at all. Commander Park Ji-soo watched from her hidden submarine as a massive Vorthok harvester ship positioned itself over downtown Seoul. The aliens began sweeping the streets with their collection beams, expecting to find thousands of terrified people running in panic. Instead, they found elaborate holographic projections that Dr. Shin Yoonji's team had secretly installed months earlier. The aliens were literally trying to capture images made of light, while the real people escaped through subway tunnels toward the harbor. "Phase 1 is working," Park Ji-soo reported to the Resistance Network. "They're collecting nothing but empty air while our people get away safely." General Song Mina directed the ground fighting from her hidden command bunker in Gangwon Province. All around the world, human forces did something that no species in galactic history had ever done before. They abandoned every important military position the instant the Vorthok ships arrived, leaving behind clever fake targets and electromagnetic pulse bombs. Within just a few hours, the aliens' perfectly planned invasion started having serious problems. Harvester 7 is reporting strange resistance patterns, the Vorthok field commander transmitted to his fleet. "The human forces are not defending their important buildings like they should. Instead, they seem to be attacking random, unimportant targets." What the Vorthok couldn't understand was that every seemingly crazy attack actually had a very specific purpose. Captain Kong Subin led a suicide mission against a Vorthok communication tower. Not because the tower was important, but because destroying it would force the aliens to reroute their communications through systems that Dr. Shin Yoonji had secretly compromised months earlier. Colonel Yu Minwoo emerged from hidden bases in the Antarctic ice with soldiers that the Vorthok didn't even know existed. His forces attacked alien supply lines while the main fleet was busy trying to collect people from the cities. They used captured alien weapons in combinations that the Vorthok had never seen before, creating battle situations that their advanced computers simply couldn't process or understand. "Sir," reported a confused Vorthok tactical officer, "the human resistance is using weapon combinations that go against their own military training. They're achieving success rates that our models say should be impossible." But despite humanity's chaotic resistance, the harvest continued. The Vorthok had overwhelming technological superiority that couldn't be denied. Cities fell under their assault, millions of people died, and Earth's conventional military forces were systematically destroyed. The aliens began processing captured humans through their harvesting stations. Following the same procedures they had perfected on 17 previous worlds, Dr. Yoon Dae-ho watched the terrible destruction from Sanctuary Alpha, tears streaming down his face as casualty reports flooded in from around the world. "We're losing too many people," he said, his voice breaking. "Maybe we should surrender and try to negotiate." "No," interrupted Admiral Lee Min-ho's voice over the encrypted communication channel. "This is exactly what we planned for. Every hour they spend confused by our tactics is another hour for Phase 2 to develop." The Resistance had always known they couldn't win this war through normal fighting. Their goal was never to defeat the massive Vorthok fleet in direct battle, That was impossible. Their real goal was to survive long enough to put Dr. Han Neris' desperate plan into action. All units, this is Admiral Lee. His voice carried across the resistance network to every hidden base on Earth. Execute Pandora Protocol. I repeat, Pandora Protocol is now authorized. High above Earth, Admiral Lee Minho made his final command decision as a military officer. He ordered the EDS Inchin and her escort ships to accelerate directly toward the Vorthok command vessel, pushing their hybrid engines far beyond safe operational limits. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the human ships, reported a Vorthok sensor operator, his voice filled with confusion. They appear to be on direct collision courses with our vessels. The Vorthok fleet commander felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career: complete bewilderment. According to every behavioral model his species had developed, defeated prey species should either surrender or attempt to negotiate for mercy. They should never sacrifice their most advanced warships in seemingly pointless suicide attacks. Take evasive action, he ordered his fleet. Destroy those incoming human vessels immediately. But Admiral Lee had spent months studying tactics, learning their evasion patterns, their weapon targeting systems, and their command protocols. The human fleet struck with surgical precision, taking advantage of every fraction of a second of alien confusion and uncertainty. The EDS Inchin rammed directly into the Vorthok command ship's bridge section, her overloaded fusion reactor detonating. Like a miniature star, the explosion created a chain reaction that crippled 3 harvester vessels and sent burning debris cascading through the alien formation like deadly rain. As Admiral Lee Minho died in the nuclear fire, his last transmission reached every resistance cell on Earth. Phase 2 is now active. Remember, we're not trying to win this war. We're trying to survive it long enough to win the next one. 3 years after the terrible harvest began, Dr. Yoon Deo stood in the command center that had once been called Sanctuary Alpha. The underground cave had grown into something much bigger and more important. It was now the beating heart of humanity's secret empire, connected through stolen alien technology to 17 different star systems that the Vorthok thought they still controlled. Give me a status report, Deo requested, running his fingers through hair that had turned completely gray from years of stress and sleepless nights spent fighting for humanity's survival. General Song Mina, her face marked with scars from the terrible Battle of Busan, looked at her tactical computer screens. Kepler 442b is completely under our control now. The Kalathi survivors have joined with our forces and are teaching us about Vorthok weak points. Wolf 1061c fell under our control yesterday. Dr. Han Nari looked up from her quantum communication equipment, which allowed instant contact across the galaxy. Proxima Centauri b reports that they've successfully established breeding colonies. The Nexari people's genetic diversity is being preserved right alongside human populations. What the Vorthok had never expected was humanity's greatest strength: their absolute refusal to accept death, even when facing completely impossible odds. While Earth burned and billions of people died in the harvest, the 12 million survivors had accomplished something that had never happened before in the entire history of the galaxy. They had turned the aliens' own transportation system against them. The beautiful thing about the Vorthok system, explained Dr. Beek June to a group of resistance commanders, is how efficient it is. They use quantum tunneling networks to move resources between the worlds they've harvested. But they never thought that some of their resources might fight back. Captain Ojiho, who was now Admiral of the Shadow Fleet, had led the most daring operation in all of human history, using captured Vorthok spaceships. Human forces had secretly entered the quantum network during the confusion of Earth's harvest, establishing hidden military bases on 17 worlds that had been harvested before. The Vorthok take all the living things from a planet, but leave all the buildings and machines behind, reported Commander Park Jisoo from her secret base hidden in the deep ocean trenches of the Kalathi homeworld. They never bothered to check if any survivors were hiding in isolated places, but humans had found those survivors. On every single world the Vorthok had harvested, small groups of the native species had managed to survive in deep caves, ocean depths, or frozen polar regions. The aliens' methodical, organized nature had worked against them. They followed their processing procedures exactly, which left systematic blind spots that desperate survivors could exploit. Dr. Shin Youngji had spent 3 long years turning the Vorthok's greatest strength into their most fatal weakness. Their quantum communication network now carries our signals right alongside theirs. They literally can't shut us down without destroying their own command structure. The war had become a guerrilla campaign fought across dozens of different star systems. Human forces struck from bases the Vorthok didn't even know existed, using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare that existed in the galaxy. They targeted civilian ships, poisoned supply lines, and turned the aliens' own advanced weapons against their harvester fleets. "Sir," reported Colonel Yu Minwoo from his command post in the Threnody system, "we've identified the Vorthok homeworld. Long-range reconnaissance shows minimal defensive systems. They never expected anyone to trace them back through their own network." Dr. Yoon Daeho felt a cold satisfaction settle deep in his chest. Humanity had spent 3 terrible years learning from 17 extinct species, studying Vorthok psychology in detail, and preparing for this exact moment. The harvesters had expected to catalog and process another predictable prey species. Instead, they had awakened something that their perfect computer models couldn't account for or understand. "All units, this is command," he broadcast across the shadow network that now connected survivors from 18 different species. "Execute final protocol. Target has been confirmed. We end this war where it all began." The final assault on the Vorthok homeworld involved military forces from 18 different species. Humans led the attack, but they were supported by Kalathi deep strike specialists, Threnody electronic warfare experts, and Nexori biotechnology specialists. Every single survivor, from every single harvested world, had united under human command, for one simple purpose: extinction level revenge. Admiral Oh Ji-ho led the space assault, while General Song Mina coordinated the planetary invasion forces. They had learned the Vorthok's greatest weakness during their years of desperate fighting: the aliens' complete inability to adapt when their careful plans failed. The Vorthok fought with desperate efficiency, but they were facing an enemy that had been forged in the fires of absolute desperation. The final battle lasted 6 bloody days. When it ended, the Vorthok homeworld was a burning ruin, its population either dead or fleeing toward the outer reaches of space. In the planet's central archives, human forces discovered the preserved records of thousands of harvested species, each one carefully catalogued, thoroughly studied, and efficiently processed. Dr. Han Nari stood in the ruins of the Grand Archive, surrounded by the preserved cultures of 1,000 dead civilizations. "What do we do with all of this?" she asked quietly. Dr. Yoon Daeho looked out through the shattered dome at the human fleet orbiting above. Survivors from 18 different worlds were establishing permanent bases throughout what had once been Vorthok space, turning the hunters' own territory into a refuge for their former prey. "We remember them all," he said quietly, "and we make sure the galaxy knows what happens to anyone who tries to catalog humanity as just another species ready for harvest." As the last Vorthok's surrender was broadcast across their former empire, Dr. Yoon Daeho transmitted humanity's new message to every listening species in the galaxy: "We came in peace. You taught us war. Now, we'll teach the universe what happens when you underestimate the species that survived ice ages, plagues, and itself."